It is completely obvious that Tarantino has so much love and passion for movies. To those who don't know him, he is one of the most revered and successful filmmakers in history, known for his edgy, violent, and provocative films with witty dialogue. Recently, he put everyone in awe with his opinion about the Hunger Games movie. Stay tuned to find out what he said so you don't miss a thing. First, what did Quentin Tarantino say about Hunger Games? The Hunger Games series has been compared to Battle Royale by Academy Award-nominated director Quentin Tarantino during a recent visit on a talk program. Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Django, Unchained, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are just a few of the critically renowned movies for which the director is responsible. Tarantino says he will stop making movies after his 9th major motion picture, with the 1992 criminal drama Reservoir Dogs as his debut feature. Quentin Tarantino immediately established himself as a significant figure in the development of contemporary Hollywood. If you're not familiar, Battle Royale is a 2000 film about a cruel government that banishes a group of children to an island and makes them fight until only one is left. Indeed, it has a lot of similarities to Suzanne Collins' 2008 science fiction novel The Hunger Games. Even though the director has remained true to his particular style throughout the filmography, Tarantino announced in advance of the 2016 release of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, his 9th movie, that he would be retiring after his 10th. Tarantino is close to retiring, but he will continue to be a cinema expert and offer his insights into the industry, as he did in a recent interview. He strongly believes that The Hunger Games is merely the Battle Royale movie ripoff. Well, you can't be so sure about that. So, is The Hunger Games a ripoff of Battle Royale? Is Tarantino correct then? Have The Hunger Games copied Battle Royale? These are the questions that movie freaks have been asking for some days now, and no one seems too sure of anything. Collins has insisted there is no relationship, even though this is far from the first time the notion has been made. She stated she had never heard of that book or the author until her book was turned in. I lean toward believing her. It's not difficult to picture two separate authors coming up with the concept of a government compelling a group of children to engage in combat. Yes, there are differences between the two films. For example, Battle Royale is set in a world that is a little more like our own than Hunger Games, which is set in a dystopian future. Additionally, Battle Royale is far more explicit regarding violence, sex, and other things. It is even obvious that the Greek myth of Theseus and the Minotaur served as an inspiration for the Hunger Games. In this tale, King Minos of Crete demands that 14 young people, 7 girls and 7 boys, be sacrificed and taken to the Minotaur as retribution for Athens' loss of a son. Theseus sacrifices himself and slays the beast. Katniss Everdeen from the 12th District volunteers as a tribute to prevent her sister from being sacrificed in the first Hunger Games novel. And now, what is Tarantino's next project? We are anxiously awaiting news about Quentin Tarantino's 10th and final movie, but it appears we'll have to endure reading another book first. The renowned director is releasing his 2nd book, which is planned for release in the fall. According to book publisher HarperCollins, the non-fictional piece that makes up this journey into the literary realm is titled Cinema Speculation. In addition to experimenting with both genres of art, the theory and criticism books also explores the artist's personal past through significant American films from the 1970s. This is not Tarantino's first publication. The Tate LaBianca murders were fictionalized in his first book, which was also the basis for the 2019 film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Although not everyone will enjoy it, Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood novel did receive some favorable reviews, so it makes sense to see him attempt a 2nd book. In addition, he takes pride in his background in film theory and criticism. In reality, all he has ever had is an opinion. But hey, that's the same as most critics, and his love of movies has made him a lifelong student of the art form. It will be interesting to see his point of view, and to some extent, how much he can get away with before his final picture, regardless of his claims in the book. Cinema Speculation is set to premiere on October 25th. So, what is the Tarantino effect about? Thanks to his distinctive visual and narrative style, Tarantino has won the admiration and respect of both audiences and critics. Filmmaker Quentin Tarantino debuted in 1992 with the crime drama Reservoir Dogs, which was well received by critics and became a classic of independent cinema. However, it wasn't until Pulp Fiction, another crime drama that stood out for its non-linear storytelling, that Tarantino got his big break. Since then, Tarantino has experimented with various film genres, including alternate versions of historical events in Inglourious Basterds and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. These films, along with his mastery of dialogue writing, distinctive visual style, and consistent quality, have made him a fan favorite. As a result, Tarantino has elevated to one of the most significant figures in contemporary filmmaking, influencing not just his work, but also Hollywood movies in general, and inspiring others. This paved the way for the idea of the Tarantino effect, which can mean one of two things depending on the situation. The Tarantino effect is a theory that suggests that the more violence we see in movies, the more likely we are to see it in real life. The theory is named after filmmaker Quentin Tarantino, whose films are known for their graphic violence. Some researchers believe that the Tarantino effect is real, and that it can lead to aggressive behavior in those who see violent movies. The use of a non-linear structure is one of the hallmarks of the majority of Tarantino's films. The Tarantino effect is the name critics give to his shifted timeline, the inclusion of numerous pop culture allusions, the creation of his own goods and brands that appear in nearly every film he makes, the stalemate, an incredible amount of close-ups of feet, trunk shots, cameos by Tarantino himself, and a dark sense of humor are additional factors that contribute to the Tarantino effect. Next, does the Tarantino effect still apply to modern movies? Given its impact on movie history, the Tarantino effect will undoubtedly continue to impact visual and narrative style for a very long time. However, when transitioning from low-budget to Hollywood hits, filmmakers might not experience the Tarantino effect as easily as others did in the past. It is more difficult for smaller productions to find an audience before the film industry is currently dominated by franchises from some of the biggest studios, such as Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe and Warner Bros. DC Extended Universe. These franchises also have effective marketing campaigns that ultimately draw in the audience. That doesn't exclude low-budget directors from experiencing their big Hollywood break, much as Quentin Tarantino did, but the competition is much tougher now, and the Tarantino effect doesn't occur as frequently or easily as it once did. The Tarantino effect might still happen, although it could be a little more challenging in the current cinematic landscape. This is due to the blockbuster franchise's present dominance of the sector. Currently, so many multi-billion-dollar film franchises are vying for supremacy in a film franchise clash. Finally, what's up with Quentin Tarantino and feet? We all know Quentin Tarantino has a thing for feet. In fact, it's pretty much common knowledge at this point. The guy loves feet. He loves them so much that he often includes close-ups of them in his movies. But why? What is it about feet that Tarantino finds so fascinating? Quentin Tarantino's films are distinctive for many reasons, including their amount and style of violence, the dialogue, numerous pop culture allusions, and the frequent shots of feet, particularly women's feet. An old question has come up once more with the release of Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, first as a 2019 film, and then as a subsequent novelization also by Tarantino. My Best Friend's Birthday, which Tarantino directed for the first time in 1987, served as the inspiration for True Romance because the film's final reel was nearly destroyed by fire during editing. But even though Reservoir Dogs, which he directed in 1992, received positive reviews from critics, his major break as a filmmaker came with Pulp Fiction in 1994. It had the first instances of his obsession with feet, which persisted even in movies where he had a role but wasn't the main director. So yeah, Tarantino seems to have a thing for feet, and isn't afraid to admit it. It doesn't appear to bother his actresses either. At a 2010 event, Uma Thurman allowed him to drink champagne from her shoe, and Margot Robbie admitted that he shared Tate's dislike of wearing shoes. Some people have speculated that Tarantino has a foot fetish, and while that may be true, it's not the only explanation for his obsession with feet. It could also be that he simply finds feet to be visually interesting. They're often hidden away in shoes, so when they're exposed, they can look quite striking on screen. Whatever the reason, there's no denying that Tarantino has a thing for feet, and it's something that's likely to continue in his future films. So if you're not a fan of feet, you might want to avoid his movies, or at least be prepared to see a lot of close-ups of them. That's it for today, guys. See you in the next video.